you've done Ericksonian trainings today, put that to the side, because hopefully I can just reveal the way that I see it. But again, I'm only assuming. Even the students close to him, and like I said, Dr. Greg spent a lot of time with him sitting next to the genius himself, and Erickson would say to him, I don't know what I'm doing, because Dr. Greg would ask that question, just like I asked him. Make sense, guys? So everyone's happy with that? So what do I mean by a strategy? Okay, a strategy is just a way you express a principle. Okay, so if you look at these two things, you have principles, strategies, and techniques. Principles govern strategies. What a strategy does is allows you to express the principle. What a technique does, it tries to put a formal step on top of something that doesn't really exist. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so there's 3 levels of a hypnotist. You can go on about your career, working through principles, is what we did yesterday, and you guys did remarkable things yesterday. Or you can go through your career looking at strategies, which is the level less than the principle, so you can have different ways to do things. Or you can work at a level of techniques that binds you to there's only one way to do it. What do you think would give you more flexibility as a hypnotist? Principles, strategies, or techniques? Principles. Okay? But in order to get the principles, yes, for some of you will have to go through the mechanical techniques. So if you decide to do that, which I'm happy for you guys to do, you're not going to learn it from me, but I can point you in the right direction. What I advise you to do is play with the techniques, have fun with them, but don't get caught in them. Your best bet is to look at every technique, do some homework for yourself, look up every technique possible. And there are some beautiful names for these fancy, wonderful techniques. Sit them down and break them down into bare basics, and you'll see the same principle being expressed over and over and over and over again. Let's take the hypnotic script. Okay, you can learn through hypnotic scripts, and then you can go to an advanced course where they teach you how to write a hypnotic script. I don't know what's advanced about it. I don't know if you write it in another language or something like that to make it harder for yourself. I don't know what advanced means. Then you can go to advanced and learn how to read advanced scripts. Let's break down what a script is. You can write a script so many different ways, can't you? Different words, different analogies, different stories. But aren't you just repeating the same principle over and over? There's only one principle in a script. Repetition. Would you guys agree? It's repetition. You're repeating, relax, and be calm. Because you can relax, we've done this before. So no matter how you write that script, no matter how much you claim it to be different, you're just writing the same script over and over, it just sounds different. Make sense? The principle is the repetition, the strategy is reading. Make sense? So when we look at Ericksonian strategies, we're going to take the principle and we're going to learn how to strategize it properly. And also with strategies, when to do it and when not to do it. Does that make sense, guys? So the same principles exist, and in conversation hypnosis, in the version we have, realistically, we're going to have about 6 or 7 principles to play with. Yesterday, we played with 1. I wanted more, but it just didn't happen that way. Eye contact. Did you see the level of sophistication you guys had yesterday? I mean, look at your session. When I was just saying, shut up and just look at her. And Taz went through a whirlwind of emotion just from looking at her. He didn't say much. Okay? Where was the technique?
In the eyes.
Yes, in the eyeballs, yes. Okay, so let's break those 3 down. What was the principle of eye contact? What do you think the principle was?
Attention.
Attention. Simple, right? What was the strategy that Deb decided to use to get attention? Staring. What was the technique? Waiting. See it all broken down? I don't know how you write waiting on a script, maybe you just have a long pause and put dots or something like that. Okay? But do you see that breaking down now? Okay? So we want to do the same thing today. So let's look at the mindset of Erickson. Erickson was known, and everyone knows who I mean by Erickson. If you don't, I suggest you look him up afterwards just so you've got a clear image or visual, at least an auditory idea of who he was. Erickson was well known to tell fanciful stories that seemed to go nowhere. Okay, Erickson was great at giving offhand remarks, great at telling jokes, and his best was making people feel really uncomfortable around him. Really uncomfortable around him.
Sounds
Okay.
like his husband, that description. So made the changes in your life.
Yes, okay. So let's break down just this. Like I said, Erickson was great at making people uncomfortable, not because he didn't care. I don't think you would find anyone who cares more about people in the therapy world than Erickson. Okay? Erickson come from a place of complete pain. Okay, he's colorblind, can't use his tongue, 3/4 of his body is paralyzed. He used self-hypnosis just to be able to move in the morning, and you say, you guys have got problems. Okay? But if you get a hold of his tapes, you'll never find a happier looking person. I mean a genuine happy person, because he's just happy to be alive. Okay? But what he used to his advantage were principles. The principles of putting people on the spot, okay, making them figure their own stuff out, sounds like the theme we used yesterday, and keeping the pressure on, as Deb did so well with our eye contact. So let's look at the mindset of Erickson, what he was thinking based on my assumptions. So, Erickson, knowing that he told stories, knowing that he told metaphors, knowing that he allowed his clients to fix their own things, there was one principle he kept in his mind that he trusted explicitly. Okay? And it's as simple as he knew the power of the unconscious mind. He knew that the unconscious mind would heal people. Now, for new therapists hearing this, we present this on day one of our first basic course. It seems too simple that we can say, well, put them in trance and just let the mind heal them. You don't really have to say anything. Who's heard me say something like that before? Now, to hear that for the first time, therapists go, no, you need to do this. You need to say this. You need to say this technique. You need to do this, this, and this. But let's break it down in basics. What heals people? Your techniques or the unconscious mind? The techniques is just one very mechanical way to get them to the place where their mind can take over. Does that make sense? So how you do this is up to you. I want you to just trust, believe, whatever you need to do, that an unconscious mind is vastly more powerful than everybody's techniques in here put together, and will include the rest of the therapy industry around the world in one person. Make sense? So when you feel the need to talk or do techniques, you're not believing in that. Okay? So how you believe in it, I can't show you, I can't give you positive proof. When you do start to believe it, you'll find that your own mind starts to adapt to it. This is what I mean by being lazy. Your job as a hypnotist, whether you take an Ericksonian approach or our approach, whatever, is to get someone in trance and keep them there. Haven't we said that from day one? Erickson was the same thing, keep them there. How we got them there was any way that he chose. Okay? So believe that an unconscious mind will heal people. Also believe the power of staring at people and putting people on the spot. Asking questions that nobody else has cared to ask this person. Now, some of you will find this a little bit rude and a little bit hard to do, but I'm just giving you the mindset. Okay? Erickson was also fond of regressing people, no matter who they were, into childlike accents. Okay? Why? Because he found it easy to talk to them as a child, because he had grandchildren. It was easy for him to talk, and he could mess around with them a little bit more. Okay? So he would, no matter who it was, no matter who they were, what level of sophistication they had, where they were in their social circles, in their groups, would put people back into a child. We looked at regressions, but towards the end of his career he wasn't even doing regressions. It just, you sat next to him, you better believe you're going to turn into a child. It's easy for him to do the work there. And this is our next mindset that we're going to look at throughout the day. Is Erickson believed and knew that you as a person has everything you need based on how you've grown up as a child to get through in this world, that you don't need any more lessons in order to solve your adult problems. So much for therapy. So what he's banking on, instead of giving, I'm working with Harry, instead of me telling Harry, here's a new strategy to go out in the world to cope with what you're going through. How many strategies can you actually give somebody? Instead, Erickson would be fond into reminding, and please underline that word, reminding people of what they've done in life. Reminding people of what it actually takes just to grow up from the ages of this to this and actually survive. Okay? So it's no longer teaching a strategy, no longer teaching a technique, or something I'm very against is giving clients tools in order to go home to change their life. I figure if they're coming to see you should fix them there, not have to give them anything. But he's really adapted his strategies in his therapy to just reminding people of them and allowing the mind to go, okay, well, I helped you survive here. I helped you learn how to yell as a baby to tell your mother you're hungry, even though you don't know any words. I'm just going to remind you of that and allow the mind, whatever resource it took from that, to connect to you saying you can't quit smoking. So Erickson was just connecting old learning lessons and attaching them to your issues in life to now. Hence why he regressed everybody. Does that make sense? Okay. So how he did that, we're going to look at that. And like I said, it's all mindset and principles. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So how do we do this? Let's say, as an example, we're going to take that strategy of re-inviting a client to think about old learning strategies, old learning lessons as a child, and having them connect to the now. We need to prime our clients in a very different way. Okay? Now, people would look at Erickson's work and watch his videos and say, wow, he blew a phobia out in minutes. I'm not talking about the NLP, phobia busters, coaching stuff. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about actual breakthroughs where people's personalities just right in front of him in minutes. 15-minute power sessions that he wrote about in the February man. Okay? And people think, how the hell does he do that? What's the strategy? What's the technique? He didn't say anything. He just looked at people and people spontaneously healed. What people were missing is what he was doing beforehand. People just think he's just being nice. He's just talking to people, but he's priming people. Erickson was fond of singing songs in front of people for a specific reason. Everything Erickson did was on purpose. But we miss that because we go, it's just being nice, it's just rapport. But he's, excuse my language, he's fucking with people, priming them to a certain extent before he actually does the therapy. So when he does the therapy, it's quick. Haven't we said that all along? You set up the session perfectly, the long, short way, short, long way, hypnotic interview. Then when you get the problem itself, it's easy to fix. It's quick. It's powerful. So we need to look at this. Okay. So let's say, for example, we're under the assumption that we're going to have our client be reminded of old learning lessons. We need to create what are called unconscious markers. We're going to look at this right now. So these are advanced Ericksonian strategies. Advanced Ericksonian strategies. Okay? So let's look at an unconscious marker. An unconscious marker, and we've written about this in the Spotting Unconscious Moments book, so you can see this in detail. So I'm just going to talk about what I wrote in the book. Who's been camping before? Okay, I don't like it either. Okay, but I have been forced. Okay, you know when you set up a tent, and if it's raining, you put like a cover over the tent, and then you've got to push those things in the ground to make sure the tent doesn't fly away. What are they called? Tent pegs. These are the same things. Why do you put a tent peg down? To keep the tent stable, so if it's windy, it's cold, it's raining, it doesn't float away or move. So what Erickson's doing is just creating unconscious markers so we can rely on them later. I know that if I put a tent peg in the ground, I can go to sleep in comfort knowing my tent's not going to blow away. Yeah. Makes sense? Safety is an unconscious marker. Here's the reason why we do it. So if we do have an up reaction, I have that marker to rely on later. Okay? If I was a bodybuilder, okay, I know I need to eat a lot of food. And you'll often hear bodybuilders talk about, usually their Sundays, as it would be, is their meal prep day. So they prep all their meals for the week coming up. Why? So they don't get hungry and they've got that meal to rely on later. Who services their car before a holiday, maybe driving for thousands of kilometres? Why do you do that? So you can rely on your car to run perfectly smooth. Who here has ever flown on a plane before? Have you ever tried to book a plane the morning you're going to fly? Okay, don't. It's hectic. What do? You probably book it weeks before so you can rely on it later. Make sense, guys? So, unconscious markers. We need to set quite a few. The ones we're going to look at are what I call old learning lessons. Okay? me give you this scenario to play with. Why would, if Erickson has students coming into his house, and to have students from all over the world fly to come and see him in Arizona, and he used to have a granny flat at the back of his house, and he would teach students there. But as my mentor, Dr. Greg, said, he didn't teach me techniques. I just was there for a week or so. I remember getting there, I remember saying hello, and then a week later I was flying home. I don't know what happened in the middle, but I know something happens, okay? I'll talk about how he set up that unconscious marker in a minute. Erickson, as Dr. Greg would tell me, would sing songs to people in the morning. Like, so he would have his wife wheel him in, okay, because he's very crippled at that point, and he'd be singing songs. Or he'd ask people, have you heard this song before? And he'd sing nursery rhymes. Okay? He'd have other people come into this little circle, this teaching circle, and he would ask them, do you have kids? Yes. What do your kids like to do? How do they like to play? Okay? I want to know why that is. In your groups, okay, discuss. Why was he singing nursery rhymes? Why was he asking about what kids do? Why was he asking if you had granddaughters and grandsons? Why was he asking people what they like to do as a child? Why? Let's see what we come up with. Why was Erickson singing child songs, nursery rhymes, tales, asking people about their children, grandchildren, telling long, tedious, arduous stories about his grandchildren? There's a reason for that as well. Why? Matt?
Like a regression and going through like a state of a child to learn.
Yes. Okay. So what he's doing is he's preparing for the regressive action. And this is why people were saying, but he didn't do a regression. He just looked at people and said, go into trance. But they missed the nursery rhyme he was singing. Okay? So what Erickson's doing at this point is knowing this is what he loves to do. He's creating a marker and unconsciously reminding you of a time when you heard those songs as well. I think someone was saying the other day they had tasted a lolly they haven't tasted. Harry, you were saying this.
Yes.
You taste a lolly or you watch a TV show or hear a song and instantly your mind gets cast back.
All those years.
Yes, all those years.
Got you.
All 6
Yeah.
Last week.
Yeah. You get that melancholy feeling, right? Okay? And you start to reflect on things you were doing as a child based on a song, a tune. Who here maybe has a favourite dinner that their mum or dad cooked? Okay, I know it is for my parents. And when I go back to Adelaide and visit my parents, my mum cooks it for me because I adore it. And I just remember those times as a child when I learned to love it instantly. So my mum's doing a regression while cooking me dinner. Okay? It happens automatically. You connect to those things. So the unconscious marker, Erickson's creating by singing songs, talking about children, grandchildren, hymns, songs, themes, all that stuff. It's children, 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 children. So that's what your mind is focused on. So when he does a regression, there's no way he can fail because the unconscious marker is all going to being young. Make sense, guys? Genius. But people watching his videos or watching the clips of him don't see that and are so dumbfounded. What's the language pattern? What did he actually say? You need to watch, if you do get a chance to watch Erickson, watch what he does before every session. Not what he does during, because he doesn't do much. He just talks to people and looks at them weird. Okay?
He's accessing their strengths, like their unconscious strengths.
That's where we're going. Hear that all coming together? Yeah. Because remember, what way does he like to do therapy? I'm going to remind you of how wonderful you were back then in order just to grow up. I'm just going to remind you of that. Genius. Absolute genius. Where we as therapists now, where do we look for new learning lessons? What new technique can I give you? What new tool can I give you? What thing can I show you or teach you now? Yes, the saying is correct. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Okay? Erickson's saying, as an old dog, you learn all the tricks you needed.
Yeah.
He's reminding you of that. Make sense, guys? Any other reasons?
Well, we thought, like that emotional attention, that trance, confused, would all bring up.
Let's talk about confusion for a second. What do we think is going to happen when we go see a therapist? Going to fix us?
Get clarity.
Clarity. Who thinks some people might be scared?
Yeah.
Nervous. Afraid of what? The unknown. Therapy, it's mind control, remember guys? Okay, we create hypnotic zombies to do our bidding. The last thing you expect to do is having an old man humming songs, singing nursery rhymes. He's in his late 70s in a wheelchair, and you walk in thinking, I'm going to meet the wonderful Milton Erickson, who has cured the incurable, who has worked with people that are deemed unhypnotizable and unwanted in the world, psychotics, psychopaths, major phobias. You know, back in the 70s, charging $2,500. Be interesting to see if we can work out what that is today, in today's money. And you have this little old man singing nursery rhymes.
Yeah, you would do a double take.
You would. It would throw you off. Just like, you know how we're not pulling out scripts? We're not using said techniques, and our clients come in and we start priming them, we throw them off because they don't know when we've started, even though we already have. Does that make sense, guys? If you can throw your clients off, it stops your clients falling. And you better believe you'll take a double take when you have this old man getting wheeled into a room who looks in absolute pain with a big smile on his face, singing Incy Wincy Spider. That's what happened to my mentor. That's the first song he said Erickson sung me. He said a week later I woke up from something.
Fear of spiders.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Okay? So there's a confusion element. He's throwing people off. He's doing what his clients don't expect him to do. Okay? Anything else? What else do you think?
Attention.
Attention. Okay? Attention on what though? Definitely on him, but attention on what?
Possibly a happier time.
A happier time, possibly. Now there is a negative, which we'll talk about. Okay? But as we heard over here, the majority of us, I hope in most cases, our childhood was very innocent. Okay? I'm not talking about extreme examples where that gets taken away from. That's despicable, and it's horrible people go through that. However, Erickson used that in his favour as well. If he knew he had a case where a child was being abused, as despicable as it was, he wouldn't hide the facts, he would ask the questions he knew he shouldn't ask, and it would really grow psychological energy. But in anger, frustration, fear, all of those things, because it doesn't matter what he had, he needed something to direct their attention from the bad to the good. It's basic therapy. Okay? So the idea, and again, it's what my mentor taught me, was to ask the question you know you shouldn't ask. Now I'm not saying this attitude will suit everybody. Okay, I'm not saying that, but I do want to present these ideas to you. Okay? So we have the regressive action, which is the unconscious mind. You have confusion, explicit attention on the things that should be putting attention on, not this thing we call the outside world that we put attention on. The I can't, so I can't. What else?
Bring up the emotion. Bring up emotion.
So bringing up emotions. What is an emotion, Deb?
Unconscious.
So if our client gets emotional by just hearing Incy Wincy Spider or any of the other songs, and you're getting an emotion, what does that already mean by just singing a song?
Unconscious.
They're already in trance. They're already presenting themselves, or they're presenting Erickson with trance that he needs. Erickson wasn't big on creating trances. He was just very patient and waiting for you to have your own, and he stole it. Unconscious moments, that's what we've looked at. What else?
That's trance quick. We're getting to trance quick.
Yeah, going to get into trance quick because he's setting up all the parameters beforehand. What else?
The wonder of themselves.
The
wonder of themselves.
Yep, put him in that place. Yep. Who's had melancholy before? It's a weird feeling. Who's had that before? Well, out of the blue, you get that memory of a childhood that was very happy from just hearing a song or watching something. It's a really nice feeling, isn't it? You think, God, I want to hold on to this. That's what he would create in people. Okay?
Yeah, we felt like the curiosity, the playfulness, resourcefulness, you know.
Playfulness. What this does, it takes off the stress for you as the client to come in where everything you think is strict. Okay? Not the Freudian approach. Here you have Erickson playing around. Okay? He would bring in, he'd have psychologists and psychiatrists in the room who are writing textbooks, teaching people at major universities, and he would bring in, you know those child blocks with the letters and numbers on it? And he'd say, spell your name with these bricks to people that are psychologists, psychiatrists, the ones that are less playful, I should say, without getting into it, and have them spell their names, make equations, count from 1 to 5 of these blocks. And as my mentor would say, he would give it to them and they'd look at him and go, "You're kidding me, right?
I'm paying you.
Make sure you
I'm
take
paying you for this.
Exactly.
I've come from, I'm teaching people in Harvard, psychological principles. I've, worked with Freud students, all this sort of stuff, and you're making me do this?" And there's Erickson sitting in his wheelchair with that smile on his face, just nodding. What's he waiting for?
Compliance.
Compliance. Talk about breaking down the mask, right? The playfulness of Erickson. When do you play? By what age do you play the most? When you're young. Another unconscious marker. So if he has these very strict people who academically are brilliant geniuses, playing with blocks, spelling David with the name on the blocks, he's getting unconscious compliance. And that's what's important. It breaks down that barrier between, well, I'm this and I'm this. Let's butt heads. Okay? Have you ever talked or seen two people talk to each other who have very high status symbols in the world? There's few guys do it. We had it a lot when I came in and I was an executive coach. Here I am, I've got people I'm working with 60, 70 years my senior who know everything about business. I'm 23, 24, possibly 25 at the time. How do I break people down? I had to follow some of these strategies because they're looking down on me, although some of them were shorter, so they're looking up but also looking down at the same time. Thinking, what is this kid going to teach? I still had acne at that point, like, Jesus, what am I going to teach? So I had to break down that barrier between, yes, I know you're older, yes, I know you're smarter than me, I know you're richer than me. I can get over it. I'm here to do a job. Make sense? Okay? So playfulness, you have people, puzzles. Okay? There was a thing he used to do before he would actually take on students. He would ask them to fill out or go through certain exercises that were all childhood games to see if they were deemed smart enough, as he would say it, to understand his therapy. Okay, Bandler went through it. John Grinder went through it once. He did NLP before they said yes to the NLP tapes, stuff like that. He made them play these games. Why? He wasn't see if they were smart. He's doing this to them. So they're playful. It's for people to get over themselves. Okay? Does anyone see that? You might have to cast your minds back a little bit. Remember that game? It's like a wooden game with all different wires that linked into itself, and you had the bead and you had to follow it along. He was making people like that, psychologists, psychiatrists, follow that. And if they failed, he'd say, no, I'm not going to teach you. I mean, talk about coming from a different place than something like your normal academia learning, which is in universities and takes and stuff like that. He's doing what you do not expect. Okay? I don't know what you guys would have done if I told you to do that. Hopefully you would have followed along. Okay? That's why he's doing it. This was huge for him. Why? Because he's in so much goddamn pain. He's not interested in how much you think you know about yourself or how the master you put on. He wants you just to be, what did I say during the MetaMind? Vulnerable. Kids are vulnerable. Vulnerability is more powerful, I think, than things like motivation and fear. When you're down and out and you've got nothing to hold on to, you better believe you'll find something to govern your world again. When you're feeling vulnerable, that's the real you coming out. That's what he's going for. Who thinks that's just genius? Okay? But to have people back then saying, no, he's not doing it right, that's not hypnosis, the medical industry says no, 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 no. It was really unfortunate that Erickson had to pass away before people recognized what this guy was doing. Okay? So what else is he going for? Regressive action, confusion, attention, emotion, playfulness.
Follow instructions.
Sorry? Yeah, can they follow simple instructions? If they say no to a child's game, what's the chance they're going to say no to his instructions that he has? Okay? So it has to be, again, it's compliance, but follow his instructions. So I'll give you another example. He had a lady coming in, I saw the clip of this, a lady coming in who was late. Okay, and she was a therapist coming in to learn from Erickson, and everybody was all in the room. You used to now have about maybe a dozen at the most people in the room, and this lady was late, and you see her walk into the room, knock on the door, saying, sorry, I'm late. And Erickson's talking to everybody else, okay? And just to let her know that he's a bit disappointed she's late, it's time for him to pick on her, okay? So the room is spread out, he's in his wheelchair, he's got a couple of couches, it's just in a room, probably not much bigger than this, probably actually a little bit smaller than this, all around in a circle, and she picks a chair, let's say you guys are my students, she picks a chair where Harry's sitting. What's she already expressing to Erickson? Let's break this down. By sitting behind, being late, and also sitting behind and dressing inappropriate. And it's not a judgment. Everyone else is in suits. She's in a mini skirt, halter top, but she's sitting behind everybody. Let's break this down.
Wrong room.
Sorry?
She's got into the wrong room.
Possibly. Let's break this down. This is important.
Respect.
There's a lack of respect not being late. What can we tell? And again, this is not a judgment, it's not a sexist remark.
Rebelliousness.
There's some rebelliousness. Okay? You don't just
Yeah.
sorry?
She's drawing attention.
Thank you. She's drawing attention to herself. By the way she's dressed, again, it's not a remark. Being late, okay, but also sitting behind. Isn't that a conflict? You'd think someone who wants attention would sit in front. So you have this lady dressed to the nines, arriving late, walking in, making a scene, and then trying to sit at the back and not be seen. Can you hear the conflict in that? What do you think her session was about when he finally picked on her?
Conflict.
Confidence. Weird, right? So he was big on reading. What are people not telling me through verbal communication? What can I see? So this lady sits in the back, and you see him do this on one hand, the other hand with parallels, and the people get out of the way, and he goes like this. No. No. Don't pick on me, Dr. Erickson. I'm sorry I'm late, but don't pick on me. I don't want to do this. And he looks at me and says, have you heard this song before? I don't know the song, I've never heard it before, but it was actually a childhood song about what happens if you're late in life. It was just a real nice nursery rhyme. So we're singing this, singing this, singing this, singing this to her. She's saying, yes, I've heard that song before. In other words, I know what you're trying to do to me. He said, come sit up here. No. And she's sitting there with her legs crossed like this, arms, and he thought, okay, I'm not getting that far, let's try something else. He said, well, uncross your legs for me. No. Stop picking on me. Can you please, I know what you're doing to me. Stop picking on me. Work with somebody else. What do you think he said at that point? No. Uncross your legs. And by now she's frustrated. She's looking at him. And you see him almost position himself like, I'm going to be here for a while. And he stares with a smile on his face. And for about the next 20 minutes, there's nothing being said. He waits. He waits. Okay? Imagine you only have an hour with Erickson. You paid all this money. 20 minutes of him just staring at this lady. What's he waiting for? Talk about a breakthrough. He's waiting for her to be compliant. Eventually, she goes, oh, fine. And he gets on with the lesson. What has he taught her?
That he's in control.
That he is in control and don't be late. She'll never forget that lesson for the rest of her life. But if he said to her, hey, can you be on time next time? Yeah, whatever, traffic. Okay? Now, my mentor, Dr. Greg, would always say, anytime I had a question for Erickson, towards the end, I would stop asking questions because I didn't like where he taked me. Okay? But he would never answer me. I would ask, well, how do I become a better therapist? How do I do this? He said, let me tell you a story, or let me sing you a song. Okay? You notice I do that to you guys as well.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a brilliant tactic to make people remember the lessons, not fantasize about what you think I told you, what Erickson told you. That alone is breakthrough. Later on, during the other parts of the tapes, I think for 4 or 5 days, she came up and said, I've got confidence issues. And all he basically says is, really? Is that what you think you have? She says, yes. And it was the story I told you guys, how he wheels his wheelchair up to her. Okay, I'm not saying do this. Okay, some of you've heard this story before. I've got confidence issues. So he's thinking, okay, you're telling me one thing consciously, but I can see unconsciously, you know, you're very attractive in any state, okay? So he's wheeled his wheelchair up to her to the point where one of his wheels is actually touching her foot. Talk about being close proximity, okay? And he's staring at her. And he whispers something to her. I'm not saying ever do it, but I think the breakthrough is important. Okay, he's in a room full of people. He's put this lady on the spot. He's run her through the ringer. She's sick of him picking on her. And he says this, you don't know what part of me is paralyzed and what part is not. What is he suggesting? Like, talk about despicable, okay? And you see her like, how dare you say that to me? And as she moves away, he moves even closer. And now he's whispering to her like that creepy, awkward whisper. And he says to her, you don't know what part is crippled, you don't know what part isn't. And he leaves her with that thought. Okay, pressure, eye contact to the point where he looks like her head's going to explode. And he says, what's your problem? She says, nothing. I've got it. Breakthrough. What was the premise of that session?
That what she said wasn't the issue.
What she said wasn't the issue?
It was very effective. It was like a short, sharp.
Yeah,
shot.
straight to the point. Let's say, for example, she didn't run away. So she's someone with confidence issues. We know people with confidence issues want to run away. But she's also dressed like she does have confidence. So the very fact she didn't run away and stood up for herself, that's the connection. Okay? I'll tell you another rather extreme example. Okay? So the lady coming in who has confidence issues again, and he says to her, question, don't ask your clients this, do you have sex with your husband? She says, yes. Well, we have a great sex life. Says, well, what's your problem? Says, I don't have control. Okay, I don't have control over my life. And he says to her, what happens after you guys complete the act of sex? Obviously we know where we're going. So what happens to your husband? Well, he just lays there and doesn't move. So he just lays there and doesn't move. Why? Anyone know where we're going with this story? She's talking about control. Husband doesn't treat her well. She's got no control over her life. And he's saying to me, so the very act of what you're doing, you're making your husband lay there where he can't move, and you're saying you don't have control over your life. Bang, instant therapy. Now consciously, that doesn't make sense, okay? But what he's doing is reminding you of things you do in your life that can be attached to this problem you think you have.
Your resourcefulness, where you've already got that resourcefulness.
You've already been here, done it, you just don't realise it. Okay, last example, we move on. We had one of his students ask about therapy. How do I work with psychopaths? How do I hypnotise them for people whose filters are a little bit less active, so they're almost in a trance all the time? And you think he'd go through, we do this technique, then I do this, this and this. And he looks at him and says, well, I want you to remember this. Every blade of grass is a different colour of green. And they moved on to another lesson. And this therapist wrote 3 books about Erickson from that comment. I don't know what it means, but what is he doing? He's throwing what is called a non sequitur out there and allowing the mind to make sense of it. Make sense, guys? So if you're doing stuff your clients don't expect you to do, they have to make sense of it in order just to stay in your office. Now, I'm not saying do stuff that's ludicrous or dangerous, but it might make you start to realise, well, I've got kids. They don't listen to what I'm saying consciously. Maybe I could do something about that. When I say kids, cameras on, clients. Make sense, guys? Okay, any questions on that? So regressive action, confusion, attention, emotion, playfulness, instruction. What else? Why else was he singing these songs, reminding clients of their childhood?
Diversion from what they really came in.
Yep, so we could put that almost at attention, so diversion, yeah.
To scare them. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, let's talk about the negative. Let's say a client has had a negative childhood. Why wouldn't he want to avoid that?
Why would we want to avoid it?
Why wouldn't he want to avoid it? Why does he go
wouldn't
for it?
want to.
Yeah,
He
why?
wants to get attention on the problem.
Wants to put attention on the problem, and he wants to put them on the spot.
Leverage.
Leverage.
Get rid of blocks.
Whether they're in pain, psychologically, which is energy and attention, or they're in somewhere positive, that's energy and attention, he can use either one. Make sense, guys? Okay? So if you went in with a phobia, you better believe he's going to make that phobia extreme before he fixes it. Why? Because then it's quick. And that's when the rest of the industry looks at it and go, that was his phobia buster. He said, that's right, there you go. That's the technique. And they use that technique with their phobias and say, I said the same things, but nothing happens. Because they missed all of this first. He set up everything to make that phobia go away. Okay? Anything else, guys?
But he also does it in a, like, nice is not the word, but it's that playfulness. It's not a, like here's a snake, I've got a snake wrapped around the neck when they come in to
Yeah.
get them in a fear. They keep it safe. That initial marker is really safe.
Yep. So how is he doing that? How is he creating that safety mark? Did you never hear him say you'll be safe? Okay, he does that, uses that through his trance in the older version.
Well, that connecting with the playfulness. It's that,
Yep.
Come along with me
Yeah, that's very jovial.
kind of thing.
Yep.
So you're creating authority as well.
Yeah, definitely creating authority, especially how to talk about mind control. What else? How is he creating such a safe environment? Let's say without saying anything. You hear some of it in his trance sequences. He will say, be safe, sit in that chair, it's safe. But other times he just avoid it. How do you reckon he's doing this?
Just embodies it.
He embodies it.
Yeah.
He's so deep in his own trance to get rid of the pain just to be there. You get sucked into it, which is why we talked about self-hypnosis. Okay? So he's going there first.
Is that truly believing
Yep.
that trance is the way to go?
Yep. What he would state
Trance,
was,
unconscious mind.
next to the granny flat that he had at the back of his house, he would have a separate room where he'd make his wife wheel him in there, and he'd sit there for 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and he'd stare at a purple rug. He had an affinity for the colour purple. It was the only colour he could actually see. And he used to put himself in such a deep trance that he would hallucinate the rug lifting on and off the ground, and it was only at that point would he go out and actually teach. So he'd just wait there and stare at it until it hallucinated, lift up and down. Talk about commitment. But if that's your only way to get rid of the pain, when medication cannot help you anymore, what other choice do you have? You've got to do something to show. And is there any reason why you don't think he valued the power of the mind? Because he's had to live it just to stay alive. Make sense, guys?
Yeah.
So unconscious markers. So in your groups, let's think of some appropriate, use that word correctly, some appropriate unconscious markers that you might set for your clients that would be important for you as a therapist. And maybe with your own little spin on things as well, bring your personality into it. So safety we know about, so I don't want that one. What other things could you set up beforehand for your clients? This is more of a reminding session, because we've done this. And asking our client to sit on the chair. Folks, we've got a client for safety sitting on the safety chair. That's an unconscious marker, okay? This is more of a reminding session. Make sure you guys remember this. Is there anything outside of the box we can think of based on what I've talked about now that maybe you could try and implement and just see how it goes for you?
I'm going to try the bubble wrap to
Give me
enter.
an example.
Like, you've got to walk on the bubble wrap to get through the front door.
Okay, very interesting, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, it's just I'm very interested, yes.
I liked the idea of having some toys there.
Yeah, even if you never treat kids, you could mark it for something, yeah?
Yeah.
And we thought, yeah, like even like a playful tune, like imagine having a footy thing or something, but then if they're not into sport, it would
Yeah, you might miss. You try these things, depending on your type of
even if
client.
it's not their
Yep,
songs.
Say something like Mr. Bean playing.
Which is the
Yep.
national
Comedy.
anthem.
yep, yep. If you have a TV in your office, if you do have a reception area, just be mindful of the type of magazines and the TV shows you're showing on your TV and stuff. Keep it upbeat and more and soft. Okay.
Imagery, like signs, you get those words that mean certain things.
Yeah, you could, yep. Create more of an environment, yep. Better environment,
And
yep.
sort of pictures, paintings
Yep.
with nice
Yep.
outlooks.
Who's been to the dentist before? What's the first thing you notice when you walk into a dentist's office?
Ugh, that smell.
The smell. And what does that smell orient you to? Pain. Make sense?
Yeah, we thought we could have bread or soup having.
You could, yep, absolutely, yep. Erickson, in the back of his house, used to have his wife cook because they're going to have lunch soon, and he would allow that smell to drift through to create more of a homely atmosphere. Now, to talk about what you said with the bubble wrap, Erickson knew that he had clients coming in that were less inhibited, okay? Who here has ever gone to somebody's house and they take you through the house and show you around? What's the room you feel most awkward in, even if they say come in and have a look? Bedroom. You feel awkward, okay? And he would make people walk through his main bedroom. So he would close off the doors and say that door's stuck, and say in order to get to the office, I'll wait for you in the office. His wife would open the door, let him into the house, tell her, I'm going to be in the office. Dr. Erickson will be with you soon. Unfortunately, the door's jammed. You have to go through our main bedroom.
Oh, that is
Excuse what's
Talk about breaking down authority. Okay, this is just the playfulness and genius and curiosity of Erickson to break it. Now, if he knows if the client says, no, I'll wait for him here, they're going to be a tough client. Okay, but if they're going to go through the bedroom and you make it awkward, and what he used to say was they used to position the bed in a certain way, put things on the ground so they'd have to be like, so why? You keep them in that awkward place. So they get through the door, Erickson's waiting for them. What a nice test to break that down. Okay? So I'm not saying do that to jeopardise your safety, but what else does this what else do you think about?
I can let the cat jump on him.
Maybe, yeah, if they're not afraid of cats. What else?
The dog.
Anything else?
It'd be nice to have that on your intake form as one thing that they remember from their childhood.
Uh-huh.
So because you could set that up then, that you could have, you know, something that relates to that.
You could, yeah, absolutely. And again, you try these things. That's the whole purpose of this exercise.
Yeah.
What's the biggest theme here I'm trying to present to you guys? Therapy doesn't have to be strict.
And it doesn't have to start when they walk in, sit down,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah, it starts before, yeah. Therapy shouldn't be strict because your clients are scared enough. Okay? Yeah, Harry.
Vulnerability.
Yes.
Walking through a room like that.
Very much so. So he's breaking that down. So the time they get there, if they don't realise it consciously what he's doing, it's happening unconsciously. That's what's important to Erickson. Can they complete that little task? Can your clients complete that intake form you give them?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a question on there that's a little bit harsher than most. Do they actually fill it out? This is all compliance.
No, it's also the fact that he trusts them to walk through the
Yeah.
bedroom. So they then trust him.
There you go.
Whatever.
Makes sense? Yeah, so all these little tests, they weren't out of just on the blue. It was all purposeful. Okay?
I actually have a magic wand,
Okay.
and when my client, it's amazing the number of people who, you know, when you say, what do you want the outcome to be?
Yeah.
And they say, I just want you to get your magic wand
Yeah.
and go, you know,
That's
blah, blah, blah. And I say,
Never
that's
Right.
easy. And I
Yes.
grab it and it makes a little tinkle tinkle sound and it
Course.
sparkles.
Yes.
And I go, there.
Yeah, it's done, finished.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they go, are you serious?
Yes.
And I say, are you?
Yeah. It's a nice test.
Yeah.
Now, what's important about this, I think, is genius on your part, Janice, is you're not telling them, you're giving them an experience. They'll remember that. There's a crazy lady with the
Think I'm
wand.
nuts, but it works.
They'll
And
remember
the-
that.
The men, like
Yes.
the businessmen,
Yeah.
come for like alcohol and stuff like that, and they go.
Yeah, where's this lady
"Good
going
thing
with
is
this?
the other thing." Yeah, that's
Okay.
gorgeous.
But you're allowing your clients to remember these things. That's what's important. Okay, guys? So any questions on this? We're going to learn how to do this. But again, do you see the genius of this to break down barriers, to do these little games, to have the playfulness, the attitude, the right attitude when your clients come in? You can say safety all you want, but if your external environment doesn't represent that, maybe your office is very harsh, okay, a lot of sharp corners, a lot of harsh tones in your office, it's maybe messy, it's not well ventilated. Do you see how you're giving off an unconscious cue to do something rather than just be more playful? Now, I'm not saying go too casual because that can also work in the opposite, but try some things. See if it breaks down the barriers for your clients as well. Make sense, guys? Okay, so let's pick it up from there. Old learning lessons, okay? So like I said, the one we're going to look at is having a client reconnect with past experiences and connect it to the now, instead of just giving your client tool after tool after tool, because that tool bag will get very heavy very quickly. And what are the chances they will remember that every time they feel like a cigarette to flick that rubber band on the wrist? That's the latest one going around that I've seen. Therapists are obsessed with giving clients tools. Our assumption should be, well, if I clear the problem, why would they need a tool? Just get rid of it. That's what you're being paid for. You're not there to teach clients. You're there to show them their potential. Okay? So how are we going to do this? What I'd like you to do in your groups is this. Ask yourself this question. What is everything a child have to do in order just to survive? Let's say from ages from 0 to 5, and then maybe 10 to 15. What is every circumstance, every event that a child and that young adolescent have to go through in order, not to get through in the world, but to stay alive? Okay, so write that question down. I'll give you guys a quick break. I know it's been a long, what seems like about 50 days straight. Okay, just write that question down. You guys can think about it as you have your break, and then we'll come back and we're going to answer this question. So what does everything a child have to do in order to just survive? Okay, once you've written that down, please have a 15-minute big discussion.
Breathe.
Play games.
Breathe,
Cry.
blink, cry. And yes, I get it. We're born with this as an instinct. But let's just take it as a metaphor, as it's the unconscious mind coming with this already downloaded, if you will.
Get attention.
Okay? Get attention for what? That's the question.
Food for food.
For food,
Changing that nappy.
changing the nappy,
Cuddle.
cuddle,
Relation, yeah.
relation,
Tired.
tired, something hurts. It's been proven, whether you realise it or not, that a baby actually has a different cry for different things. You've actually heard that in their kids before, so it's a true
You know.
assumption. How do you do that? You know it as a mother.
Because it makes you feel sick in the middle of the night.
Yeah, you know it, right?
There's
Okay,
levels.
so it becomes an instinct. Yeah, different levels. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
what else?
Move their body parts.
Move their body parts. How does a child learn what a hand is? And oh my God, I got two of them. What are these things? They're fingers. And if I push them together, but what is pushing? I can hold things.
Pinch your
Okay.
brother.
You pinch your brother.
Body awareness, awareness of themselves and their boundaries.
Awareness of themselves and their boundaries. Okay? You know, we talked about the other day when you close your eyes, you can tell when people are standing next to you and around you. How do you develop that skill?
Pardon?
Your awareness.
And that's that crying, like the voice control.
Yeah, the voice control. How do I realise that if I open this thing that I don't know what it is, it's just a hole, and I use my diaphragm to push, there was a thing called a cry comes out of it, and if I cry, this big tall lady comes running to me and checks me. I might use that to my advantage. That's the manipulation coming in, right?
Resourcefulness.
Resourcefulness. Yes.
And know what you need.
How do you learn to know what you need?
Gag reflexes, you know, you've had too much to eat.
Yeah, and you throw up.
You learn that again at 15 until 10.
Yeah. And I'm glad I didn't hear about it for some years last night. Too much drinks. Okay. What else?
What's that?
What else?
Defend themselves.
Defend themselves.
How to play
How to play.
and have fun.
Have fun. How to make a friend. You teach your child how to make a friend. You might present ideas to them.
They're better than what adults are.
Now we're thinking why? Because they're more resourceful, they're more willing to give things a go. Now there's a wonderful autobiography I read quite a while back of, I can't remember what state she was, an Australian crime scene investigator. She's one of the first women who wrote books about psychotic personalities and stuff. She was a psychologist, became a crime scene investigator. And they said, what sparked you to take this up as a profession, being mostly a man's profession? She said, my father used to play Who Did It game when I was a child. And there's videotapes of her where the father, loved playing with his daughter. He used to have her downstairs, he used to run upstairs, open up all the cupboards, open up all the drawers in his bedroom, run downstairs and go, who did it? Someone opened up all the stuff upstairs, quickly. She'd run upstairs and he'd film her going up to the cupboards and she'd push them all closed, everything. She'd push them all closed, go back downstairs. A couple of minutes later, open them all up again, run downstairs going, who did it? And 2 or 3 times of doing this, you see her, she'd stop just pushing it and she'd grab the door and look. Someone doing this? Why do the drawers keep opening? She's looking under the drawer, into the drawer, into the cupboard. To later become a crime scene investigator where she has to look for clues because it's sparking curiosity. Obviously he's not knowing what he's doing, he's just playing games. But to show you from a simple game or a simple pattern, she grew up into it. But a nice way to teach your children. It's just a nice thing to show you how we're connecting to lessons all the time. Okay, so what else do we have?
Confidence.
Confidence.
That they're like crazy.
Yeah. So we learn as we go, yeah?
Other people's expectations.
Other people's expectations, other people's morals. Okay, you know them instinctively. You know when you stand too close to somebody, they're going to feel uncomfortable when you do. How do you do that naturally? It's impossible. Make sense?
And that you're not the only person that exists.
You're not the only person that
Same with
exists.
twins and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. The basics of what Erickson will talk about would be a child first learning how to write, first learning how to read. They're the basic metaphors he would use, so we don't have to get into those extremes. But we're doing the same thing here. What else?
Fear.
Fear. Yeah. What is fear? You're not given a label of fear. You make it up, don't you? My fear is different than Harry's. My confidence is different than Brooke. I can guarantee the feeling we get when that's jeopardised is different, but I've labelled it a certain way as well as everybody else. Does that make sense? It's not a one size fits all.
How do kids get scared of the dark?
Yeah, and kids get scared of the dark, yeah.
The warm and cold, temperatures more clean and dirty.
Yeah. Right and wrong, clean and dirty, hot and cold, day and night.
And language.
Language, yeah.
Recognising faces.
We're recognising faces. How does a child decipher who's mum and who's dad? We know it now. But that first lesson about who is who and which one I can manipulate better, as Deb would say, to give me what I need, just to survive. Did you have something for Jane before I really interrupted you?
I just said balance.
Balance. Kids, as simple as standing up, falling down. What do we do as adults if we fall down metaphorically? We just think, oh, screw it, I'm staying here, it's too hard. But a child will keep pushing on. Make sense?
Secretive, how to be secretive.
Yeah.
How to be secretive, yeah, how to start lying. Right?
Yeah,
How to hide. What else?
Swim.
Big on?
Swim, not drown.
Swim, yeah, swim.
Like,
Smoke, yeah, addictions, all that stuff. What else?
Blow their nose.
Blow their nose, yeah, what they need to do. Okay. What else? What about the older child from 10 to 15? What does that child have to go through? Emotions. What's fear? What's love? What's scary? What's good? What's wrong?
They're not special. They're not special.
Yeah, learn they're not that special. Learn to accept other people for them. Learn to respect people, hopefully. Learn to fall in love. Learn to have their heart broken for the first time. Learn how to drive. That's a very simple one.
Push boundaries.
Push boundaries.
Friends.
Friends, yeah. How to know who's a true friend and who's not. Okay, sexuality. Right, they've got to work all these things out for themselves. Anything else?
Know what you like and what you don't like.
Knowing your likes and dislikes, knowing what motivates you and what upsets you.
Knowing how your body works.
Knowing how your body works. Discovering your body for the first time. Okay, you can get crude about it, it's true.
Independence.
Independence.
Coping with school.
Sorry?
Coping with school.
Coping with school. Yeah. We'll have different experiences there.
Making decisions.
Making decisions. Choices. Now, all of the above plus an endless list. And now our client's sitting in front of us saying, I can't quit smoking. Okay? See the polarity in that? So realistically, what could you teach somebody having known they had to go through all of that and an endless list? And now your client's saying to you, I can't give this up, or I'm not motivated, I'm not successful. Give me a break, you've got to be kidding me. And this is what Erickson was banking on. To remind them, not consciously, but unconsciously, of the power of their mind. Does that make sense? So in our priming sequence, these all become unconscious markers. So we're used to priming our clients to say it's going to be safe, everything's good, everything's going to be great from here, I'm going to look after you. As an example in the context of this session. And what Erickson, yes, he was doing that, he was also reminding people of what they've done in the past being regressive. Make sense? Okay? But he wasn't just doing it as, well, have you ever seen a child first learn how to write? They make one line and put two lines together. They do enough of those lines together, squiggly as that may be, and they can start to spell their names and read books and stuff like that. He would also do it through metaphors. Okay? So what I would like you to do is, I just want you to do this real consciously. I want you to write 3 or 4 examples of what you may remind a client of that they've accomplished in their life. Don't use the basic like Erickson did, because that's his, of a child first learning how to ride a bike, and also read. There's basics again, and they're very obvious. So just 3 or 4 examples of what you might remind your clients about to empower them, to make them realize they're more than the problems they give you. Okay? We're going to start viewing our client as more than what they're giving us. So let's do this consciously. What would you like to remind your clients about? All right. So who enjoyed that? Can you see that being very worthwhile?
How long is that for?
Yeah, about 22 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
okay. So let's pick one. Okay. Let's pick the table. I like that one. What can a table? Let's do this as a big group. What can a table teach a client?
Stability.
Stability.
How to be strong.
How to be strong.
Good foundation is important.
Good foundation is important.
Negotiation.
In what way?
Around the table.
Ah, good. Yes. Direction. Yes.
How to rely on other people, other legs.
Yep. I said other legs could be the other people. Yep.
Family.
What it holds.
What it holds.
Functionality.
Functionality. Has anyone seen those really small tables that can hold an incredible weight on top of them? Okay. What else?
Stability.
Stability, yes.
Don't scratch it.
Don't
Not
scratch it.
actually angry.
Yeah, yes.
You can play underneath. Yeah.
You can play them more than just a table.
Tables can be made of lots of different materials, but still serve the same purpose.
There we go.
But if one leg is uneven, then it upsets the whole
Yeah,
balance.
balance of it.
But it doesn't have to be a certain shape.
Doesn't have to be a certain shape.
That's not.
If it's made of wood, it might have splinters.
Made of wood, it might have splinters.
Tables hold great conversations.
Tables hold great conversations.
Round table means everyone's equal.
Yes, everyone's equal.
Family gathering place.
Family gathering, yeah, it's a place to connect.
When you go to a restaurant and you ask for some water for the table,
Yeah, I agree.
it doesn't mean that the table
Yes.
It never gets old.
Can we get wine for the table, please? And
Yeah,
the table will pay for it.
the sharing of the space.
Sharing of space. A table can pull a room together.
Head of
Or
the table.
divide.
Head of the table or divide. It can match other tables.
Can be a
You can have a
distraction.
table that can extend.
Be a table that can extend or be put away.
Break.
It can break.
Old.
It can be old.
You can have portable tables.
Now, portable. Can you hear the metaphors inside the metaphors? So this is what Erickson was banking on, was to talk about inanimate objects and teach his clients something important, because they need to make sense of it. They've come in and said, this is my pain, this is my frustration, this is my affliction. And instead of saying, well, you need more support in your life, or you might have to find this in your life, you need to be stronger, you need to support yourself better, you need to look after yourself, he tells people the value of what a table can do. Make sense? You hear the genius in that. Okay? So you're taking the same process of overloading a client with this long-winded, detailed story. Okay? And because it's relatable, because everyone at some point or understands what a table is or has experienced life with or without a table. Make sense? Same thing with a hat. Let's do a hat. What can a hat teach us?
Protection.
Protection,
Visibility.
visibility, sorry,
Fun.
fun, yep.
Where your head is.
Where your head is, yes, I guess you forget. Identity,
The status symbol.
status symbol,
Fashion.
sorry,
Fashion.
fashion, yeah.
You can hide behind.
Confidence,
That you're
hide
hiding,
behind
that you're
it.
hiding behind.
Hide.
Yep.
Warm.
It could make
Or-
you part of a group.
Make you part of a group or make you disassociated from the group. What else?
Safety.
Safety, authority,
Stand out.
stand out,
Part of a
Authority.
uniform.
sorry, part of uniform, it can save your life.
The authorities.
What else?
Cover.
Cover, no longer as a hat, just something you put on your head now. Car keys. Well,
Got 4 pages of stuff.
let me tell you, where we're going. Teach me something. Yes, please, Deb, teach me.
Rules, boundaries. See, we went to the car, so it goes empowerment, it can freeze you, get lost, danger, abandonment, status.
The keys took us on a trip.
Protection,
Yep.
maintenance, negotiation, intention,
Yep.
distraction, sickness.
Is this everything car keys can do?
Gives you access to all of this.
Yep.
That's where we went with it.
It's fine. What else?
Backseat.
What else?
So we spoke about more keys just in general.
Yep. So you can have the contrast frame or in the general frame. Erickson will go more general and allow your clients to come up with what you guys come up with, but it can work in similar.
But you
Yes.
can have one key that accesses many different things.
Yeah. One
Or
key.
one key does lots of different things at the
Yeah.
same time.
You can have a key that doesn't even look like a key.
Key that don't look like a key.
They don't
Well,
have to be one.
some
so-
people hang on to too many keys and some people just have the right amount of keys.
Yep, the right amount of keys. There's a story, metaphor inside of that.
We thought if you lose them, abandonment.
Yep, so that's what we want our clients to come up with. Yep, what else?
And that pianos have keys as well.
Pianos have
Oh,
keys.
nice.
Yep, what other general terms or what other general things can keys do or what are they about?
Identity.
Access to resources.
Access to
Or
resources.
they can keep things.
Yep, keep things safe. Yep, if it wasn't for the key, you might not be able to lock your front door if your front door has all your worldly possessions behind it.
Safety.
You're relying on something that can be very small and metal, okay, in some case plastic. What else?
Isolated because you're locked away.
You're locked away, yep.
Can start the car.
Can start the car. Can stop the car. a small thing you rely on to start something that's essentially metal, that can weigh thousands of kilos to get you from one place, that could be really important or stop you getting into another.
Something to play with. So
Something to play with, yeah.
Preparation.
Preparation, yeah.
It could be like the key thing, you know, like the most important thing,
Mhm.
you know, that sort of.
Yep.
How important?
Who's ever found a random key before? What do you automatically think? Where does this go? Sparks curiosity. What else?
Like when you come back from across the road, there's another side to that.
Key to the secret cupboard, yeah, key you keep away from the children, because that secret cupboard has all those secret liquids in it.
There's
Yeah.
the key that you find it, but you never throw away, and you don't know what it's for. But
Yeah. Just in case, yeah. What else?
Take your place.
It'd take you places.
When you lose your keys and the harder you try and find them, the more they.
Yeah, so there's a metaphor in that, yeah.
That
getting
feel,
multiple copies of people, so
Multiple
you
copies.
can share with
Yeah.
other people.
that feeling you get when you get a new car,
Yes.
you get the keys.
Yes.
And then you get one off.
Yes. All right. So, why would this be important outside of just telling our clients these metaphoric stories? What's important as well? Let's say your client comes in, sits down in your chair, gets the paperwork, and you just somehow see that they're holding onto a big set of keys they plonk down onto a table. It'd be nice to tell a story about what keys do because now they're going to associate to it.
So mobile phone would be one that's always,
Yeah.
probably usually
Yeah.
always off.
Yep. If you were curious about what story, what metaphors might I use, and you see your client comes in and on his shirt he has maybe a picture of someone fishing, you'd probably tell a story or a metaphor that revolves around maybe fishing, what a fishing line can do, what a boat can do, what water can do. Why? Because they can associate to it. Make sense, guys? Okay. Any questions on that? Again, this is just strategies to keep in the back of your mind. So now, you can now turn an object into the content of your therapy. Make sense, guys? Okay? So it could be things in your office that you know your client's going to see. Like, well, that's a strange table. If they take a note of it, now you might tell a story about that or tell a metaphor about that. Does that make sense, guys? And this sparks your creativity to look at things as more than they are. Isn't that the way we have to view our clients, as more than they are? There's context in that as well, okay? So now you're priming, the two extra versions of priming we have is yes to tell a client about safety, tell a client about things they're going to learn and things like that, but now you're telling a client about past experiences, what they've had to go through as a child in order to be sitting in front of you, and in that, start an offhanded remark or offhanded journey of a story about an inanimate object that'll have your client trying to piece all the pieces together. Make sense, guys? Okay? Any questions on that? All right, one last thing before lunch. Who gets asked questions a lot? So maybe people at work, children, friends, family. How often do you answer these people's questions and they just disregard it? Yeah? Or they don't hear you, or they re-ask the same question over and over and over. So what does this tell us?
Didn't say the way they wanted to hear it.
Didn't say the way I wanted to hear it? What else? They're not listening. Attention.